Hey, everybody out there watching and listening. We're going to start here in just a few seconds. Got George Webb today. It's going to be very exciting stuff. Here we go.
If we divide 125 genders by 3 bathrooms, how much climate change do we have? The Kate Dalley Show starts now.
All over the world and overthrown governments all over the world. And our elections have always pretty much been fake since they've been around, So like this election is no different. I know that people like the whole idea of we need the political savior to come save us. Let's get the right guy in the White House. What a mess our whole country is. We need to get the right guy in the White House. The guy in the White House is always a front for the bankers. And it's pretty much always been that way. The CIA itself, it's the bankers. If you look at the early CIA, it was all bankers. It was Wall Street lawyers out of Sullivan and Cromwell. That's who's been doing this the whole time. And now they're enslaving the planet with spy satellites. And they're the spies, So, I don't know. I just get so tired of the election rhetoric sometimes. People just really need to understand that this is the bankers. They run the public sector. They run the private sector. This is a financial slavery system. It's the slavery system they've been using for decades, but on steroids. And in Latin America, their big focus is to integrate Argentina and Brazil. They want to do the same thing to South America that they did to Europe to create the European Union, which is start with a free trade agreement for all of Europe. That's how the EU started. It evolves into this bureaucratic totalitarian behemoth, and it's yoked to the U.S. through the euro dollar. They're doing the same thing.
All right. Welcome, Kate Dalley Show. So glad to have you listening out there. And that was a Whitney Webb clip coming in. I've got guest George Webb, not to be confusing, but I just realized how confusing that was just a second ago. I've got George Webb, and he's fantastic. I can't wait to hear from George. He's been on the show multiple times. And of course, we have the texting line. You can text in, call in 435-680-2503. And where I really want to start is that clip. What did you think of that clip? And I have never asked you your thoughts on Whitney Webb.
No relation. I'd be proud to have her, as a daughter. She's done really great work on the whole idea of Epstein as a compromiser. And, everyone else kind of pushes Epstein child trafficking, but really it's for a purpose. And Whitney and a very few others have been in my camp, which is no, it's Mossad.
Right.
Les Wexner's bank account is Mossad slush fund. The power of attorney was to run Mossad ops, whether they're compromise ops or sometimes weapon running, sometimes drug running, and Iran-Contra. So she has an expanded view of Jeff Epstein, and so do I.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we're going to get rolling today. Boy, we have a lot to talk about. You should just go check out George on X, because Real George Webb 1. Boy, there's so much to talk about. Let's start with Epstein. Let's start with where we're at with it and the files. And, I made a comment the other day, George, that, we need to be really careful with these files, because I'm sure there's a lot of stuff that's really created in these files too. So it's really going to be, we're going to have to use a lot of discernment. I would think they've had a lot of time with these files. So the timing of the files themselves, Epstein, give me the lowdown.
Well, I think the first one that we had just recently, where it says, here's Edmund de Rothschild giving you 25 million, Epstein. I went in 2022, I went to that banking house in Geneva on Rue de Rothschild, in front of House of Rothschild, pointing at Edmund Rothschild's. It was actually Annie Rothschild now that he's gone. But saying they did the Ukraine war, they did the Ukraine coup in 2014. And that drop actually, said Ehud Barak and all those connections is 8,200, connections and emails between Ehud Barak running Israeli intelligence. I just put my headphones in so you wouldn't hear this notification. So,
awesome.
So that's the real deal, right? But this latest one, what happened, the big difference, and Ian Carroll, by the way, did a great job of putting all the emails into one big container, JSON container, they call it. And now you can search the whole thing and see, boom, Ehud Barak, Ehud Barak, Ehud Barak. But then this next one, they included what's draft emails.
Okay.
And right. And so they put out this thing that looks like an interface to Gmail. And then there's all this Trump stuff. There's all the Trump derangement syndrome stuff. Oh, is Trump a cocaine addict? Did he do this? Did he do that?
Mhm.
And I would love to see Kash Patel or Gabby Tulsi Gabbard
Mhm.
separate the drafts, because that could be anything versus
Right.
the things that we have a receipt, a sender and a receipt. So
That's good. That's a good comment. Yeah, for sure.
yeah.
For sure.
So a lot of these things where people are kind of running off, and I know Andrew got arrested today. I think, is that going to be like an Epstein arrest at Fort Lauderdale, where
Yeah.
he just comes in on Sunday to read the paper, or is it a real arrest?
Mhm.
But
What do you What do you
I think
think?
it was always to try to entrap people,
Mhm.
investors. They wanted to go to the island. We talked about Fergie was on the island as well,
Mhm.
and they had a thing called the Path Foundation, and the Path Foundation was longevity. First day they talk about health and all that. Second day, cancer therapies you can't get. Third day they start talking about, well, we can't get you to the front of the line for
Mhm.
organ transplants. And then fourth day, I don't know what they talk about, your own private little harem and genome and baby
Snow White.
mamas.
Snow White.
Yeah, all that stuff on the fourth day is
Mm.
how I think they did it. And people would leave, as they went through there. But Fergie was also part of this. So I'm interested to see what happens with Andrew. It'll be fun.
Because sometimes we get these kind of token arrests, and then everyone thinks everything's cleaned up, and it's not. So it's a really weird thing. And then what about the timing? Why did these files finally come out? What's the time? What about the timing of these?
Well, in this last dump, I call it the Ehud Barak dump, because Ian Carroll did the same thing, is he dumped into a big container, and there's no mentions of Ehud Barak, right? Are you kidding? Between Jeff Epstein, his handler, and Jeff Epstein,
Mhm.
that's crazy. What I think it is all this Trump derangement syndrome. They said there's more mentions of Trump than Harry Potter in the Harry Potter series. There's
Interesting.
there's more mentions of Trump. There's more mentions of Trump than in the Bible of the Lord or Jesus, right? So that to me seems set up for the election. That to me
Mhm.
seems, let's take all the
Midterms.
let's
Mhm.
take all the hate and everything, and let's put all these DNC crossdressers out there who are
Yeah.
acting like conservatives, and now attack Trump with the TDS syndrome, and that's what I think's going on.
Big distraction. Way
Yep.
big distraction, yeah. And so in the fi in with the fi well, there's one question that I always had though is why are all of these elites that can get girls going to the trafficked girls and also taking photos with them? Does that seem weird to you? That they're gonna acknowledge and smile for evidence that can be shown later? That always seemed really strange to me. What about
Well,
you?
remember Victoria Roberts with the picture with Andrew, and she's like
Mhm.
14 and she's in the kitchen with Ghislaine. I think
Yeah.
that's a model to say, well, if he can do it, then I can do it. When you're trying to get a whole bunch of people to jump in the pool, you have
Mhm.
the first person jumps in the pool, and Andy was in the pool with her.
Mhm.
And then everybody said, "Oh, that's fine. The water's fine." And then everybody else jumps in the pool. And
Ah,
I think she might have been used as bait for the other investors coming down there. You remember they were talking about gene therapy, they were talking about gene splicing,
yeah.
they were all the Bill Gates stuff. They were talking about everything that was kind of these advanced off-book
Mhm.
technologies. And then while you're there, you'll do something stupid like the Barclays Bank guy or somebody else, and
Mhm.
now we're going to put a guy on your board, or
Right.
maybe two, or whatever. Yeah, yeah. And I
Mhm.
think that was the operation.
What else do you think was going on the island that was deeper than trafficking? With all of those emails you just mentioned, all of that correspondence you just mentioned.
Well, if you look at Jeff Epstein's whole history, it's been a big Ponzi scheme. He was a Ponzi scheme when he was at Bear Stearns. It was a Ponzi scheme when he went to Towers Financial with Hoffenberg. It was a Ponzi scheme when he went to Lehman Brothers. It
Mhm.
was always to get high net worth people. And then once he had the names of the high net worth people, it was always to get them to invest in some kind of scam, some kind of Ponzi scheme with Madoff, Milliken, et cetera, two other examples. and it was always to get people down to the island to kind of give them a little investor conference and then hope they do something stupid so that they would invest, politicians invest their campaign funds,
Mhm.
CEOs to invest or give a board seat if they were in corporate world, or
Mhm.
people in the sports world, to be platforms, or people in the entertainment world to be platforms like P. Diddy. So I think that's kind of the strategy, was just one big, Mossad bank account to run ops.
Okay. So as far as why Epstein, because I think there's so many Epsteins. So why Epstein is the fall guy? I mean, why all this attention on Epstein? Because I think Epstein's a pretty evil guy. But I'm just saying why, because it seems to me like P. Diddy's supposed to be kind of like they're offering up this guy. And so we think Hollywood's cleaned up now. You know what I mean? So how many Epsteins do you think there are? Do you know
Well,
his
I think Les Wexner's a part of this mega group. I think it goes back to the Bronfmans running. First they were running illegal prohibition, but then drugs. But then that was go back to Meyer Lansky. Whitney Webb talks about all this. Go back to Rosenstiel, who was his competitor. Go back to Lucky Luciano. It's a crime. It's a crime gang, and what they do is they pick somebody who's willing to write all the checks and live all the high life. But the bad part about that is being the front guy is
Yeah.
you go down when the organization cuts you off and lets you wriggle on the hook, and that's what happened, I think, with Epstein.
Yeah. Do you think he's dead?
No, well, I mean, I'm 50-50. I think we saw him on a beach in Sarasota about a year, supposedly after he died. And I was like, man, he had a beard, but he was with same glasses and sitting on a lawn chair at the beach reading New York financials. I realize a lot of people do that in Sarasota, but I swear to God, it looked like him. And I'm like, oh my God, he hadn't even left the country yet.
Oh my gosh, that's bold. It would be bold. Yeah.
Yeah, but look at his father-in-law. That looks staged with Robert Maxwell's supposed disappearance when he's about ready to go to prison. He disappears.
Yeah.
Ghislaine has had similar, easy wrist slaps in prison. So it just seems like a never-ending wrist slap type justice for them.
There's been a lot of pictures that people are comparing and saying, is that really her? So wondering if she's even in there. I mean, she know where a lot of bodies are buried. She's kind of been at the head of a lot of stuff happening. So I doubt that I don't know. I would even doubt that she's even in there. I don't know. Just seems strange.
Oh, Ghislaine in the emails? Or
just in prison in general.
Oh, yeah. Well, she's in pretty light duty prison right now. And I think Trump will pardon her on the last day. I think Kash Patel got rid of Bongino basically to say, okay, that's your one that you can, one where you can get rid of your assistant, and the next one's on you, buddy. So he got rid of, with Charlie Kirk, Bongino was the sacrificial lamb. But I think on Epstein, so much of his pre-publicity and campaigning was Epstein, that he has to deliver on Epstein. And the only witness really who knows everything that's alive or at least available is Ghislaine. So they're going to give her whatever she wants, I think, and then on the last day do the old Mark Rich, Bill Clinton, pardon for her.
Anything else in the files that surprised you?
Just how much TDS was in there. It was just over the top. Larry Summers is talking to, Ehud Barak about how Trump's, or Jeff Epstein about how Trump's a cokehead. I mean, come on. Did Trump do 9/11 too? Did Trump drop the Murrah building? Did Trump,
There's a lot of focus on Trump for this, it is ridiculous. Yes, I have to admit, that is ridiculous. Yeah.
I don't believe any of it. And if you throw out the draft emails like we talked about in the preamble, if you throw out the draft emails, there's hardly anything about Trump, but like I said, more mentions than Harry Potter. Come on, and no mentions of Ehud Barak. So I just would say to people, just take this one in with a grain of salt, and let's get Ghislaine in front of a congressional committee and start asking questions.
Who do you think was Epstein's handler?
Ehud Barak. And Ehud Barak has been the last 6 prime ministers' interfaces to Mossad. There's an intelligence general in the United States who is Mossad's top guy in the United States, a guy by the name of Danny Rothschild. He ran intelligence for Israel for a number of years. And but going out to the Zorro Ranch, and Danny was at Fort Huachuca. Fort Huachuca is the intelligence center. It's where you steal all the secrets, drones, Golden Dome, hypersonic missile, all that sort of thing, as well as training all your intelligence operatives to do intelligence work like military people pretending to be civilians. So that's where Danny is. Well, you can either, when Ehud comes in to meet with Danny Rothschild, you can either meet in Times Square, or you can have Larry Visosky, which is Jeff Epstein's pilot, fly him there. And I went and knocked on Larry Visosky's his door, and they answered the door. His parents came to the door and said, "Jeff, is that you?" I mean, like, that's how closely related Jeff Epstein is to being the, I'm not going to say the Uber driver, but his plane was the shuttle for Mossad in America.
Wow. I know that there's been a lot of talk about, is it Fort Huachuca?
Fort Huachuca. Yeah, I've been there. I've been on the base several times, not many times.
There's been a lot of talk lately about that and Erica Kirk. Do you understand those connections?
Sure. She made movies there since going back to 2012, November Renaissance. But the part that hasn't come forward yet is the fact that Andrew Colvett has known Mark Burnett. He's the one who made Survivor. He's the one who made The Voice. He's the one who made all the Apprentice series with Trump, Celebrity Apprentice with Trump. And his man in faith-based programming is Andrew Colvett. So Andrew Colvett has come in and told Erica, I believe they owned a gym together since 2013, maybe 2016, in Fort Huachuca, Sierra Vista. But he's the one coaching her, saying, "You're going to be the new queen of faith-based movies." That was before he met Charlie, right? And before she met Charlie. The person who introduced Andrew Colvett to Charlie was Mark Burnett through Donald Trump. And that's how Charlie met Andrew Colvett. Charlie met his wife, Erica Kirk, through Andrew.
Interesting.
So to me, it was an infiltration the whole time. They wanted to turn TPUSA away from a Get Out the Vote organization, like a Scott Pressler type organization, into a faith-based media. Mark Burnett was turning toward faith-based media, and they wanted to, line up their stars, or who are, the Kid Rocks and so forth,
right,
who are going to be the faith-based stars. And then at Super Bowl, you saw where they're trying to launch Kid Rock as the new, rock star of faith-based music.
Right. It's all been very interesting, because I thought that was kind of it was almost like an arranged marriage. I introduced, and I don't know, there's something just sort of strange. In fact, I haven't talked to you about the Charlie Kirk thing. So, what are your thoughts on that? And what are your thoughts on Erica? I really want to know.
Well, I spent a month there. I was one of the first people to go there, putting out the video and walking all the different things. And I definitely think there was a team Maroon, a Maroon 5. And that's why all the kids wore the maroon shirts. I think Tyler was always going to be the patsy. That's why they sent Tyler out to the Orem Dairy Queen, and then they sent him to a graveyard, and they gave Candace, they want you to chase this story out to this graveyard for the story to die. But if you follow the black team, the team Toyota, the ones that rented all the Toyotas that were up and down University Parkway, and you follow their exit and you follow the radio dispatches that just came out, they're all heading east on University Parkway. That's over toward a heliport, right, owned by a guy named Derek Maxfield. And he's got a plane that flew 3 round trips to an Indian reservation. That's where you go when you don't want to get arrested by state and local police. So he's sort of the Dr. Mudd here in the John Wilkes Booth getaway. He's using his plane to shuttle people back and forth to this Indian reservation. Well, the helicopter port is right at the end of where Team Toyota is traveling. So that's, the story I broke today. And the other piece, what you see behind me, is this 1, 2, 3 of the planes flying into Provo the day of the shooting. Charlie flies to Salt Lake City to meet with Savory Foods, But Erica follows shortly thereafter, 45 minutes later, to fly to Provo. Why? Why wouldn't she be on the same plane as Charlie?
Yeah,
That's
that's hot.
allegedly. She would fly with her husband and then come down to Provo with her husband or to
Mhm,
Orem. But she flies there. And where does the plane go then? It only sits on the tarmac for a few minutes,
mhm.
and then it flies to Santa Barbara, where Andrew Colvett lives. Right. And then it waits there. It doesn't turn around. If it was going to go pick up Andrew now that Erica's there and drop Erica off, and now it's going to go and get Andrew, it waits there for an hour. It waits until they hear Charlie Kirk's been shot.
Mhm.
And then it flies 14 minutes after Charlie Kirk's been shot. So it's sitting there waiting in hot standby for what? I mean, in
Right.
the plane left Provo at 10:20. So they didn't know Charlie Kirk was going to be dead at that point. Why are they pre-positioning the plane in
Sure.
hot standby? Right. And that's really incriminating.
Very incriminating. Yeah. And the Team Toyota was that sorry, I can't talk. Were those the same guys that took the body to the car?
Well, no, Team Toyota is the one that Candace says are the Egyptian assassins or the French Foreign Legion assassins. We don't know who it is. The
Okay.
reason why I call them Team Toyota is they rented a whole bunch of Toyotas at the Provo
Those are those
airport.
guys. Okay, got it. Okay.
But
All
the
right.
guys that took Charlie in the SUV are
Security.
all the people that seem to be involved in uh, Brian Harpole and Dan Flood and those folks, Frank Turek, seem to be involved in a surveillance company
Mhm.
in Fort Huachuca, Sierra Vista. So the idea is you have Charlie bring in all the people. He's the charismatic leader that brings in all the people. And those guys then are flying these drones, capturing faces,
Hmm.
capturing phones,
Mhm.
like they did at the funeral with the 270,000. And then they're selling that through Erica Kirk's mother to DHS. She's a DHS contractor. So they have an ISR business, which is the surveillance and reconnaissance business in Sierra Vista
Hmm.
that nobody's talking about, right?
That's
That's
interesting.
right at the gate of Fort Huachuca. I was just on Wolves and Finance, and he focused on that, and I'm like, thank you, Wolves and Finance. I spent a week in Fort Huachuca trying to get people to look at this ISR business. So
Yeah,
thanks,
yeah.
Wolves and Finance. Yeah.
Interesting. I had a lot of friends there. I'm in Utah, so I had a lot of friends there and that day and I had a friend that spoke to one of the guys that brought the body to the car. He had said he was new and that the team had been replaced. Charlie's security team had been replaced and then he smiled and said nothing ever happens in Utah. I thought that was really interesting. He was the one that was carrying him out to the car and standing right in front. And it was just a strange thing to say, and it wasn't really paying attention to security. So I guess he was security, but he wasn't really paying attention to anything because my friend called him on it and said, "Why aren't you looking at anybody? I mean, why aren't you doing your job?" And so that was kind of an interesting thing. And did you have anything more on the replacement team that was in that day?
None of the replacement team. I FOIA'd all the cameras, all the rooftops. I FOIA'd
Mhm,
all the way from Tyler going all the way to St. George. So
mhm.
we went to Cedar City, St. George, Panguish, if on the other side, you know Panguish probably,
Mhm.
and then Bryce Canyon, and then all the way up through Spanish Fork and so forth, all of them to see which route he took. You know, you
Yeah,
go
there's no
on.
security footage anywhere of him even casing the joint to find out where to be, and he only had about, what, 10, 11 days notice that, there was going to be this event as it was announced, right? So how would he where's all the footage? We have footage of I mean, don't we? I mean, I think he's a patsy, but why wouldn't they show any footage, right? I mean, no one I don't hear anyone asking about that as far as going up there because down here we're 4 hours away. He's 4 hours away. He lives in the city here. So yeah.
Right. I mean, if you've ever driven it, and we did, I mean,
Mm.
it's a ways, and so
Mhm.
this is why this plane being in the air 2 hours and 13 minutes, the tail number N888KG, that's Derek Maxfield's plane. It's turns the transponder off for 2.5 hours. Where did it go? Did it land
Right.
in St. George, as a little airport, as you know, there? Did it land
Mhm.
in Panguish? We know he had dinner. Tyler Robinson had dinner in Panguish. I can't get the flock cameras, which are the license plate capture cameras,
Mm.
from any of these towns. They're quieting it. And why? Why wouldn't you just say, you know, we saw him in Cedar City the next morning. getting gas, but
Mhm.
as he was driving back from Panguish, but we don't have, and he had the Challenger with him then, but it should be total transparency. It should be Cash Patel and saying, we're going to put up 25 LED screens and you can tune in anytime you want on the internet
Yeah.
and see where we are
Mhm.
on footage and see all the footage from every camera.
Yeah, all the clothes changes that he seemed to do. And the little tiny backpack that obviously housed a gun, right? Little tiny. Yeah.
Well, that's the whole other piece is you have one guy who is team maroon, and
Mhm.
it makes more sense that clothes changes really slow you down, it just asked pass man, right?
Mhm.
And so that doesn't make any sense to me. Why you'd be changing into tactical gear and then changing back into
Yeah, makes
non-tactical
0
gear
sense.
so quickly. And then we have somebody giving an accomplice who supposedly is giving him a change of clothes, which
Mhm.
might not be Tyler. So
Mhm.
it's much more from an organizational point of view, it's a much better chance that they sent Maroon out to the graveyard, and that was the Maroon team was going to go to the graveyard. They were going to meet. Tyler was supposed to meet his buddies in the Dairy
Mhm.
Queen in Orem,
Mhm.
and then our getaway is going to be in a different direction, right?
Yes, yes.
Right, and that's going to be toward airports.
Yeah.
Get out. So that's what I think happened. I think Tyler's a patsy all the way.
Mhm.
He was a kid who was very exceptional.
Mhm.
There's him going into that, that electrical tech where you live and then
Yes.
falling out. There's something wrong with that whole story too.
Mhm.
So we'll see as time goes by.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, lots of holes, lots of things we didn't see that people didn't ask for, like the footage of him driving up there to like look and see what building he's going to get on top of. Like all of those little things that no one saw. And then of course the concreting over the crime scene really fast. I mean, there was just so much that
I
made 0 sense.
I was there about the time they were doing that. It was the day before. And then when I went back, I was there a month. And so when I went back, I'm standing there and they were doing something with the little trap door.
Mhm.
And I look over there and I go, that's Ian Carroll. And so,
Really?
so yeah, it was Ian. Yeah. So we were trying to figure out the
Mhm.
C2, C3, C4, C5, C6, C7, T1,
Mhm.
what kind of bullet would have done that. And
Yeah.
if you line it up, there's a couple of degrees of freedom, a little bit of a wobble in that little cone, but
Mhm.
we both ended up at the same spot. It had to be from here if you were going to,
Yeah.
but I don't think it was done by a bullet
Who do you think
because
did it too?
I think it's somebody snapped his neck in the hospital. They said he had a heartbeat in the hospital. So I think somebody just did that. In order for the C2 to this
Mhm.
C1 to this, there's no bullet that can do that. I looked at it. Ian looked at it. I
Mhm.
just don't think there's any way a bullet could have done that. But
Mhm.
we don't have the autopsy. I'd like to see the autopsy.
That would make sense when you see the body being carried out because the head's forward, it's not back. No, if they had blown him away like that and he was dead, I mean that head would have been back, but nobody didn't seem like anyone was supporting the head, but it was forward. So that's kind of an interesting thing. Hmm.
Yeah, and there's all kinds of communication. Just as a last thing, to all the folks in Armed Queers, and they have this person recruiting them from this Armed Queers group, and they're all talking about it on the Discord server the day before. So they look like they were trying to get him there big time to be the patsy. They were looking like they were recruiting the heck out of him to be there.
Yes, and he was yeah, for sure. And so what about the camera that they really were interested in removing behind Charlie? What were your thoughts on that?
Well, I think all of those are to capture faces in every Charlie Kirk event. And the
Mhm.
more angry you are on camera with your asking the questions and so
Uh-huh.
forth, the better for the camera capture, because that's what they're trying to do is see who are the hotheads, in the crowd
Mhm.
and self-identify. So
Mm.
and we certainly saw some of those. So yeah,
I saw them take down that camera, but they weren't worried about the other cameras, and that's why behind. So that's why I was wondering. I mean, why that particular camera?
In order to put Osama bin Laden in power for the Northern Alliance, they used a camera gun. Paul Manafort was there, I believe. They used a camera gun to kill the predecessor to Osama bin Laden. So camera guns have been around a long
Mhm,
time.
mhm.
That's
Interesting.
potentially
Yeah.
potential. I'm not a
Wow.
forensics guy, so yeah.
Right? I know. I know. It was just a question. Who do you think killed him and why?
Well, there's a lot of fingers at Mossad. There's a lot of fingers at the folks in Utah. ATF and their little game that they're running. If they were doing something nefarious through Fort Huachuca, like running drugs, and that's why the numbers kept just going sky high, and that's why everybody has a $6 million driveway on the executive staff at TPUSA. If they were doing something like that, and Charlie found out about it and said,
Yeah.
"Hey, no, we're not doing this," and he said, "We're running a Doge audit, and we're going to get rid of this," that's where you would get, remember Pierre DuPont, the Pierre calling him and saying, "Do or die. Here's the offer you can't refuse." That would trigger an offer you couldn't refuse. You remember he met with a priest, he met with a uh, a rabbi, he met with I think a minister as well the night before he died. I mean, I think he thought, "Hey, I've been given an ultimatum, and I'm not going to take a knee." And I think he knew he was going to die. He sent that message to Andrew Colvette, and he sent that message to Dan Flood. So, I mean, I got to take him at his word.
Right.
I think this is all over the Doge audit. It's the people who did not want that Doge audit. Either Pierre DuPont, I don't think it's Pierre Falcone, I think it's the DuPont to keep the Ukraine war going, or there's always the Bibi Netanyahu,
Wow.
the Gaza thing. But I don't believe that. I think it's Pierre DuPont.
Okay. And then Erica's the never grieving Erica. So any thoughts on her? I know you mentioned a few things, but anything else you want to add to that? It's been really strange to watch.
You fly your plane over to Santa Barbara to be with your lover, to be with the person. I mean, she had the kids out of, the surrogate mothers, the baby mamas for her kids. They never show the face of the kids. I mean, I think she was from day one to be infiltrated into GPUSA, potentially as a money laundering organization. I think her real companion is Andrew. She wants to be a star, right? And Andrew is the star maker. He's the one who works for Mark Burnett, not Charlie.
What's the end game with that? I mean, to Turning Point to readjust its message, and maybe it pretty nefariously to do something to Christianity, because I feel like she's all over the Christianity thumbprint. And I think that as people find out the lies and the things that have been going on in the background, then people go, well, if that's what Christianity is, I don't want it. I mean, where do you think the end game is?
I think it's in the logo. The turning point is to turn Christianity into Christian Zionism. I think I did a couple stories on the Ziklag infiltration, 1,000 different churches that TPUSA Faith and Rob McCoy want to get into. TPUSA Faiths have the Mount Mandate, etc. But it's this Christian programming to take Christians and turn them into Christian Zionists. Again, instead of doing veterans programs for your local veterans who are on the street, you're going to now want to rebuild the Third Temple in Jerusalem. Now, I'm a strong supporter of Israel. I do a show with the Super Jew. We have kibbutzes. So I'm a strong supporter, but it does seem like this Christian Zionist programming is to take the money and send it to Israel.
Oh my gosh. What else have you been working on?
Well, Epstein keeps me busy. We've been to the Stone Fortress. We've been to Long Island, years in New York on that, but also Florida for dozens of visits. We went to the island. So I'm following up on all that with these new emails. And then, of course, any of the Netflix series that tell the half-truths and leave the CIA out, I get involved in all those. So Manson, Zodiac, you name it, Son of Sam. I bring the CIA back in where they ought to be.
What's the relationship with CIA and Mossad? How would you describe it if somebody had a microphone on you and they said, how would you describe the Mossad and the CIA?
You bring in Mossad to do your dirty work because it's outside congressional oversight and approval, and we go do their dirty work. If there's something in Israel that needs to be done, for the most part, Mossad's a convenient partner to do our dirty work, and that way CIA can farm it out. It's like having a contractor when you're hiding something on the books. You hire a contractor. You can always fire the contractor later and say, "Oh, I hate that contractor."
Right.
So I think it's a contractor.
Okay. Is there, as far as Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, you mentioned that, was that the only reason he got rid of Dan?
Well, I mean, Bongino was late to the party to finish his podcast. I mean, if I got that kind of job, I would want to be in Washington the next day. I
Mhm.
think Dan Bongino is, made his career opening and closing doors for Hillary Clinton, to be honest. He wasn't an anti-terrorism guy. We recommended Robin Gritz 20 years counterterrorism in the Situation Room at the White House.
Mhm.
I think he's just a fish out of water. He was way over his head. If
Mhm.
I'll give him the benefit of the doubt and just say he was incompetent and ineffective.
Right.
But I do like Cash. I met Cash. I think Cash has been very ineffective.
Mhm.
But Cash needs a deputy of somebody who knows the ropes. And
Mhm.
I put forward a person who went against Robin. Robin Gritz went ahead with Andy McCabe, went
Mhm.
head to head with McComey. You got to get somebody in there that knows the ropes, has been to the academy, and Cash is a little bit of a fish out of the water too. He was a guy who worked for Devin Nunes as a
Mhm.
congressional appointee, so a staffer. So
Mhm.
he needs somebody in there to help him who knows the ropes.
What about Pam Bondi? What are your thoughts on her?
Well, she seems like she kind of answers to Mossad. I mean, it doesn't seem like, she had 10 years to do something with Epstein when she was there, and then she didn't in Florida, and now nothing here. So I think Pam needs to step up and stop working for Kazowitz and start working for Donald Trump. I think
Mhm.
Trump is. I mean, I've been to the border. I went to the El Chapo border as well, where Mitch supposedly found the tunnel. I think there's another way bigger tunnel in Fort Huachuca right now, to be honest,
Yeah.
because our overdoses are going through the roof. But you got to work for the president. You
Mhm.
can't. You got to take everything that you brought to the White House and forget it. Leave it at the door. You work for the president now. You work at the
Mhm.
request of the president, and you deliver for the president. So
Mhm.
Pam, check who signs your check. Okay, that's my recommendation to Pam Bondi. Stop working for whoever the Kasowitz law firm in Miami and start working for Donald Trump.
Going back to the first clip with Whitney Webb, do you think Donald Trump takes orders?
Well, I think Bibi Netanyahu has a strong influence through Jared Kushner. Bibi Netanyahu, I mean, Jared Kushner slept on Bibi Netanyahu's couch for 3 years. I think he had
Mhm.
a guest room, but he always says he slept on his couch. There's a strong Mossad influence. If you go to Mar-a-Lago, we've many trips there. There's a strong Mossad presence there. He took a whole bunch of Rothschild money to build hotels and casinos. So there's a little bit of a, you owe me. I supported you when you were flat on your back.
Mhm.
So I think there's a strong influence. Does Trump answer to Bibi Netanyahu? I don't think that's true. I
Mhm.
think Trump's done great things on the border. I stood on the El Chapo tunnel. You couldn't have done that 2 years ago. The border czar that we supposedly had never been to the border. I've been to the border 24 times now, 25 times,
Wow.
right? She's never went to the border. Can you imagine if Kamala was the border czar and the president now?
Yeah.
So I think Trump's strongly in control. I
Mhm.
just think the people around him have to do a little bit of a look in the mirror and say, what do you want as your legacy? Do you really want to be answering to some law firm in Miami, or do
Mhm.
you want to be working for the president? And that's where we're at, I think.
One more question for you. You know, they took care of Andrew Breitbart, I think,
Yeah.
quietly and behind the scenes. Why do you think Charlie Kirk's was so public?
Yeah, Andrew with the heart attack gun in Brentwood. A lot of the same people. Ben Shapiro was in the same cube as Charlie Chuck Johnson, and Chuck's was a business partner, my business partner now, Peter Duke. So I know him well.
Mhm.
They took out Breitbart and made the Daily Wire. Right.
Right, right.
That's what happened. It wasn't Sherman Oaks, and then they moved it to Nashville.
Mhm.
I think this was same thing with TPUSA. Take out people who are faith leaders that have a mind of their own for Christian American Christians,
Mhm.
and turn it toward Christian Zionism in Israel. And that's what they did with Andy, and same people. And I'm talking about the person
Yeah.
I worked with in Nashville. Her husband was the partner of Jeremy Boring, starting the Daily Wire. So this is
Mm.
from insider information, and I mean it's close sourcing here,
Right.
and that it seems Ben Shapiro is the common link between the torpedoing of Breitbart and then turning it into the Daily Wire. Now we're going to torpedo TPUSA, and
Mhm.
it's going to become some new thing. I don't know, TPUSA UK or TPUK or what. I don't know what it's going to become, but it seems like they're taking down. This is why I don't want necessarily TPUSA to go away, because
Mhm.
we still have to get out the vote. Scott Pressler still needs a few shekels, to get the vote out. But I do fear that it's been completely infiltrated and corrupted. We need to start over with something new. I don't know if James O'Keefe is going to step forward with an organization, or, I asked Ian, and Ian says he doesn't want it. Because he'd end up dead. So we'll see. I don't know.
Okay. Any last thoughts?
I know people are going to try to tar Scott Pressler with the dark brush because he did a deal with Tyler Boyer at TPUSA. Let me tell you, if they got $5 million, Scott got 100,000. Scott works his ass off and he burns shoe leather. And Tyler got 4.9 million for a jacuzzi, another driveway, another vacation house. I think he's bought 4 mansions now on that road he lives on. And he never picked up a phone and never did a thing for all that money. And Scott's out there working. So I would ask people, they're going to try to smear Scott, and he's the one guy who's actually doing the work. What
are your thoughts on Candace?
I think Candace is a person like Charlie who's a true believer and now knows that she was handled and managed and didn't know all the truth. Certainly when she was with the Daily Wire, and certainly when she was with Zoe, when she was with Zoe Weiner, Miss DNC, they paid for her college education. And she also started saying, wait a minute, I'm being handled here. I'm being breadcrumbed in a direction here towards Zionism, and I'm not going that way. And I think she's a target for that reason too. And so is Tucker Carlson. So I definitely would look at them both and say, watch out. But when I see them leading them out to a graveyard, that's an old trick. And people got mad at me for saying, I think, no, it's over here by where the heliport is. And, they got mad at me for going to the Dairy Queen over there. But I think if she just listened to some of the people out there doing the shoe leather work like I do, and some of the other ones, it would be a perfect combination. But she tends to go her own way. So I'll just leave it there.
All right. George, thanks for joining me. And the best place to find you, is it on X?
X, Real George Webb 1 with the numeral 1, and also georgewebb.substack.com on Substack. Perfect.
Go to his Substack. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Kate Dalley, thank you. Bye.
Yeah, you got it. Thank you. All right. All right. So, of course, you can make comments if you want. I'm open. And, there's so much I want to say right now. There's so much. Yeah, the Charlie Kirk thing just keeps coming up, and of course the base that he was talking about too, and Erica, that keeps coming up too. And so it'd be great to get all your thoughts on why you think this the Erica story. Erica is a very interesting girl, and I do feel like this is towards Christianity. This is supposed to kind of get the youth to say, I don't know, if that's what that is, I don't know. There's just something so off to me about that. And the voting, to get out the vote, the voting has been taken for so long, and I don't know how to, well, I know that's one of the reasons I was censored. And so talking about the voting, people don't like it when you say that we're not actually voting. Okay. So, because we're not voting. All right. I shall take a caller. I did say I would. Okay, go ahead. You're live.
Well, you may not like what I have to say here.
That's all right.
But this Webb is probably a CIA. He's a disinformation artist all the way through. First of all, it's easy to find out it's 5,000 or 38,000 times Trump's in there. Mm-hmm. There was a load of information about Trump involved in sex with these children. The calendar girl where he, started his finger in them, and, and also the baby that was murdered right in his sight. No talk about the victims. Yeah. It's all about, Epstein and a few others, where the victims have a right to go to court. The victims have evidence. The victims have emails. They have witnesses. And most of the vast majority of this is all before Trump was ever thought about going to, or not thought about it, but said he was going to run for president.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about decades. This is going back 26, 7 years, and the Trump materials go back in the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
So there's no Trump syndrome, deranged syndrome here. There is no such thing as that. When you hear somebody say that, that's usually because they don't want the truth come out and they're calling you crazy.
No. One comment I do want to make, though, you can go on, but one comment I do want to make, though, is in mentioning him all of those times, there's a misdirection there. So the things are bad. Everything is bad in that category, but they do misdirect to try to go red meat with a lot of the loony liberals that love that kind of stuff. So the only reason I was agreeing with him is that it is a distraction, but maybe we even think it is for different reasons. But it is a little bit of a distraction. Yeah. For sure.
It can be, but you look at the details, see where his name is, and what does it say.
Yeah,
when you do that, you see that kids were being murdered at his sex parties where there were copes held with him and Epstein and Maxine. The ones up in New York, the ones in Rancho Palos Verdes, near where I used to live, and the reports of the children disappearing, reports of the one that he sponsored where he had that Robin Leach. Older people know who he was. He had the
I remember Robin Leach. I waited on him when I was a waitress back in the day. Go ahead.
Right. So he reports that Trump was in the room when he murdered the girl. He strangled her to death. Yeah. Now, there's a bunch of accusations. You don't say, there's nothing in there, which is the establishment line.
I didn't say that. I just said that's part of the distraction. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just misleading people on all these things. The open borders, there's been no significant change in the number of border patrol under Biden, under Trump, any of them. The border's wide open. Trump has been allowing people in on those not visas, but to say asylum. You basically all they have to say asylum, and they let you in. You just lie.
Okay,
big lies on that.
So here's a comment. Here's a comment from YouTube, and this is from Unknown Soldier. He says this guy on the phone is lying about George. George has never worked for any government or government contractor.
Who's that?
This is a comment coming in on the show. So there's a whole bunch of people in those reports that aren't coming out. They want you to focus on that one person and Epstein. They want you to focus on the island. Many of these vicious abuse of children were here in states, and they won't allow prosecution. No states are prosecuting, and states have a responsibility to prosecute these criminals. And it's really important that people realize for 25 years we've had we had 4 presidents, 2 Republicans that haven't released this until the discharge. That is true.
Petition.
You're right. 10 years we've been talking about it. Yep.
Yeah, and so Bush covered up, Biden covered up, and there's loads of Republican Democrats, Trump's in there, or excuse me, Clinton's in there, and Elon's in there. Now, Elon's apparently nothing like Trump was in there. There was Epstein had a girlfriend for 4 months, apparently before Maxine, or Maxwell rather, and she said that she was told that the 2 closest people that Epstein is 2 closest friends. I forgot one of them. One of them was Donald Trump. So we have to go through this thing and look at the specifics and not just say, there's not much in there, because that's not true at all. And all the other criminals, the power structure of America. Gates is in there, as you know, and
I don't think that's what he was saying. I don't think he was saying there's nothing in there. I think there's the distraction part about Trump. And then I think that there was probably a lot of files that were doctored because they had a long time to work on them before their release. They could have released these a long time
Let me comment on that. Those 1,000 survivors, because many have died, thousands survived, and many have been supposedly committed suicide. They have evidence. They have a family they talk to, friends they talk to. They have emails. They have lots of things they can bring forward.
I'm not denying that. I'm not denying their existence. Yeah, I know that there was a lot of that going on. I know. I mean, it's very evil. I'm not denying the level of evil.
So the big issue is no one's prosecuting, not the feds, not the states, nobody. The establishment doesn't want this stuff to be going to court, because then evidence will start coming out, and if there's juries, it's going to be pretty sticky to not allow any of them to go through, and there's so much this Webb was saying is so definitely untrue. He is a classic example. When you get these CIA kind of guys in, they have a lot of facts, and you don't, and some of them are true. But this Kirk's organization, Kirk from almost the beginning, probably the beginning, but I have from almost the beginning, was working for the conspiracy. All you need to do, he had these a number of these forums, public forums, where he had audiences for, and he had J.D. Vance, and they would go back and forth, and they would say one lie after another to promote the conspiracy's tyrannical agenda, and it was all about getting Trump off. That's what the number one goal of that organization under Kurt was, to get Trump elected, who's now a tyrant and a dictator. But if you go through those, if you really know what's going on, go back and see those tapes. And also with the students, you see some of this. One of the questions with the students was, he was critical of Elon Musk. And Kurt said to him, "Well, you can't criticize him because you don't know what's in the mind of a billionaire. So you can't do anything. You can't sin if you're a billionaire." But anyway, but if people, the listeners, go back and look at some of those sessions where he went around the country. Most of the ones I saw were in the South, Bible Belt, where they went back and forth and just saying one lie after another, support tyranny, the agenda of the conspiracy.
All right. I appreciate the phone call. And of course, you can text in too at 435-680-2503. Always appreciate that. It's interesting. I just happened to be watching a clip of Glenn Beck. Glenn Beck. And Glenn Beck was saying, now I know why I was born. And, I used to have a show for the Blaze anyway. And I've interviewed Glenn too. He doesn't do a lot of interviews. I've interviewed Glenn a couple times over. But he said the reason I was born was to take a stand for Israel. And I was like, and the guy that was pointing this out and said, what in the world's going on here? Because, Nancy Pelosi says the same thing, and Ted Cruz says the same thing. And here I'm a Republican. I'm a conservative. Okay. And I'm hearing all of these people say their ode is to Israel. And the guy that was doing the video was pointing out, what about your allegiance to America? What about our country? Why is it always Israel? Why is it always your allegiance to Israel? It's like Ted Cruz said, I've been in office for 13 years, and every day I've spent making sure Israel has the money they need and shoring up Israel. And the guy just made a point. He said, you want to like another country, and you want to be in office, and you want to be, talk show host. You want to do all these things. Why is it always become about Israel? Why is it always about Israel and over the United States? And that was the point he was making. He was just saying, this is so strange. Does anyone think this is strange? And yeah, I do. I'll raise my hand. I think it's very weird. And I know why. I've done a lot of research, and a lot of media is bought and sold, it's just amazing to watch the ode, the constant ode to Israel. So just pointing that out, because when I heard him say that, he's like, I'm 62, and the reason I was born was I'm supposed to stand for Israel. And I'm like, okay. Wow. All right. So I just had to point that out. One thing I did want to mention before I close up today's show is I was watching, this is going to be a complete pivot, because I've been watching Erica Kirk. I've been watching Glenn Beck. I've been watching Erica Kirk go off on the presentations she's doing, and all the traveling she's doing for our Christian circuit. Right. And I'm a Christian. But he was right about the Zionism the Christian Zionism thing going on in America. So he was right about that. And I do feel like Turning Point is being used to our youth to get them to jump on board. For the support of Israel, right? You're not allowed to criticize, endless money, blah blah blah. Okay, and so it's very weird. And I was watching this movie, and this movie was about a guy, and it was years ago. And this guy he was in total poverty, and he lost his wife, and then he lost his children, and his children became part of the corrupt foster system. And he, basically was saying, I don't have the means. I don't have the means. And so they're going to stay in foster for a while because I can't get them back out. And I was watching another movie, and it was all about the fact that they were kind of pushing this narrative in the movie that the person couldn't afford a baby, so why not just abort it? So why not just get rid of it, because it would solve this problem? And then we always talk about getting back to God, and about, getting our country back to a high moral character, right? We have a lot of CIA running the country. We have a lot of CIA running the media. We have a lot of CIA everywhere. And we have a lot of people on the ground telling on their neighbors, working for them as civilians. And we just have so much, it's so thick right now. It's just so thick. And so if there was ever a time we needed God and discernment, it would be now, right? We got to discern the truth, because we're being lied to all the time. And then, of course, we've got to get back to God. But a lot of people don't know what that means. And I was thinking a lot about this as I was watching these particular movies. I like to watch older movies. I don't like the newer stuff as much as I like the older stuff, which is rare. It used to be the other way around. But I go back and I look at the messaging in movies, and I look at the narratives, and the narratives are always this. You have to just look at your situation, okay, whatever's going on in your life. And that could be for you too. Job loss, spouse dying, kid, anything that's going on in your life right now. And instead of asking God for advice, and instead of asking and having the faith that he could help you solve the problem, we just immediately go to what we know to solve the problem and try to, and we leave God out of it. But as soon as something bad happens, we curse God for it. Do you know what I mean? So we're in a space where we have been narratived to death. We have been brainwashed to death. And when I look at all of the things happening right now in the world, and I'm thinking, if we ever needed to reach out and ask for help and guidance and everything else, it would be now. And we really need help when we're dealing with media. Because media, and I've been in this animal for 16 years, and I am telling you that it's insane. It's insane what goes on in media. And the narratives are so thick. They're so thick. When people say return to God, a lot of people think they mean go back to church. And that's important just because that support system is there, and it kind of keeps you on track weekly, right? And it's really good for you to be around like people and you can hear messages that inspire you for the following week, okay? Church is always good, but it's not just that. It's more than that. It's about, I have this problem. I turn to God because I have faith that he can help me solve it. In watching one of these movies, I was a single mom, and I had a baby, and I could have basically said, well, in what I'm dealing with, I'm going to abort it because I can't see 5 years from now, and it's all up to me, and I have to make this decision, and this is all I can do, and blah blah blah. I never did that. I turned to God. I said, what do I do? And of course, I was never going to abort, but I don't believe in that. But I turned to him for help. Hey, I'm having this baby. Can you help me financially? Can you help me to deal with the situation? Can you help me in every way, in every realm, and help me to understand what to do on a daily basis? I'm going to really need your help. And that worked out for me. Truly did. Doors were opened, windows were opened, lots of opportunities came, and I was able to pay the bills, and I was able to deal with the situation. Okay. And then I met my husband. He adopted her. And all I want to say is that we don't do that enough. We don't do that enough. We sort of drop the ball a little bit. We think it's all about just going back to church. It's not. It's all about what is your reliance on him. In order to get this country back and to see what we're not seeing, to get unbrainwashed, to reverse the brainwashing of all the narratives, the only way to do that is to get closer to God. And we're going to have to teach our youth that there's going to be a lot of people out there messaging our youth, and they're going to appear to be great Christian people. I have my doubts. Turning Point backed by billionaires. I don't know. I know there's some good people in there, because I know some people in there. There's some good people in there that want good things. There really is. But you have to kind of look at overall messaging. Where is that headed? Where is it going? And what is it going to do to the youth? Where is it headed? I've had a lot of questions about Erica, a lot of questions about utilizing Christianity, right, to eventually see its demise, kind of like the Tea Party, right? The Tea Party, obviously Christianity much bigger, but the Tea Party, they did that. They sent in Newt Gingrich. And I've mentioned that a couple of times on the show, where I've said they sent in Newt to destroy it. They did. And they destroyed it because he changed the messaging. He rerouted it. And I feel like that's what's happening. But our youth are subject to all these reels and shorts and all these video pieces they're seeing and all these different things. And I'm not saying they don't have a brain to think for themselves. They do. It's just that the brainwashing is so thick. And the brainwashing has been very, very heavy in Hollywood to get people to react to problems and situations without God, right? And you don't see it much. You don't ever see that, oh, well, did you pray about that? No, you never see that. You see, well, the person couldn't solve it, right? So the person's poor and he had to go to welfare. Well, did that person pray about getting out of that situation? Did he ask God for help? We never do that. We either say, you solve it or the government solves it. That's true brainwashing right there. For sure. So in getting back to God, it's going to be developing a relationship where whenever you need assistance, whenever you need him, and whenever you are creating that relationship, you are creating a relationship so that you're leaning on him and that we demonstrate faith. Did I think I was going to go there today? Not really. I mean, I was just going to have George on and go. But I think it's really important to listen closely to what everybody says in media. And I think it's important to be able to decipher and discern the messaging. Okay. And I think it's really important that we start really relying on God. I know, in the prepping world, which I've been a big component of, I love prepping, and I'm always advocating for that. At the end of the day, you can't prep as much as what we'll end up needing. And so what are you going to do? Well, hopefully you rely on God. Hopefully that relationship is there and that's your first thought, because at the end of the day, that's the only thing I think that's going to get us through the different things that we go through. Our NSA spying is not going away. Doesn't matter who's president. Our nets have been cast and they're only getting deeper, and it doesn't matter who's president. Doesn't matter which side. And no one's doing anything about exposing the Ukraine war because it really wasn't a war. No one's really looking at the fakery and really saying what's fake and what's not, right? And almost all of it is. It's so much fakery on stage, so much fakery. So we have so much to do, and we're going to need so much help to do it. And I fear that our nation, we don't have that relationship as strong as we need it to be able to rely, to get answers, to get help. And you don't have to solve it, and government should never solve it. They shouldn't. They should hardly be solving a thing out there. And we've gotten into trouble because we always think the government's the answer. A lot of people, I know you guys don't, but a lot of people out there, government must take care of this problem. Government must do that. Government must do this. I mean, talk about growing government in the very, very worst way. So a nation that's close to God has a relationship with God and has the faith component built in. So that you're constantly relying on God for his help. And, I don't curse God when bad things happen because I really don't think they're his fault. And I think as all of us are experiencing things right now and stresses, I got my own package of stresses right now. Got a lot of stuff going on right now. And number one, get healthy. That's why I do this. That's why I drink this stuff. I love this stuff, by the way. Get healthy. We need all hands on deck and get that relationship with God. And I think that's really going to be important. Is this a Christian podcast? Not really, but I am. So I'll share my thoughts. But I just noticed this big like narrative that's been happening to us for so long and so embedded in the movies. Whenever something bad happens, a crisis happens in the movies, turning to God isn't what they do. And we've grown up with that our whole lives. And so thankfully, a lot of you are still faithful. A lot of you still demonstrate a lot of faith and understand what I'm talking about. But, oh man, we need to get our moral character back. We need people that see beyond government and our own limitations of what we can see and the limitations of how we solve our own problems, because it's very hard to do that. I rely on God a lot. And I have ever since I've gotten into media, because I knew as I started researching that I was going to be not part of the club. So I knew that it was going to get really, really tough, to be honest. It's a hard gig to be in because you see a lot. And it's not stuff I ever wanted to see. I didn't want to see any of this. 38,000 hours. I didn't want to see any of it. I didn't want to see what the deep state's capable of. And I don't want to see all the lies and all the horridness. But we do have that tether to God. So maybe we should strengthen that and utilize that to try to get through all this. I don't know. It's just going to be a lot of narratives going back and forth and distractions and disinformation and all kinds of stuff happening. And we have to have our discernment, which means you got to have that relationship to be able to discern. And then maybe our nation can rise a little. Just the thought for the day, thought for your Thursday and your weekend. How's that? I really appreciate you tuning in because you're awesome. What can I say? And I love your contributions to the show. And I love that you text in and write these messages. I love it. I've been reading through all your messages, so I really appreciate you. But we can get through a lot of things, and we're supposed to. I think this is what this life is for. We're supposed to be tried and tested, and it's okay to be tried and tested. And God isn't cursing you. He's right there with you. And maybe the tried and testing is kind of like the refiner's fire. And maybe that refiner's fire is really needed in our lives because maybe it makes us better. Even in the most horrible situation or grief or terribleness, maybe it makes us better. Maybe that's why he's allowing these things to happen to us, right? To be tried and tested. Because I don't ever grow in the good times. I only really grow in the bad times, right? And so I think we should be grateful for those as we are the good times. Everybody always says, "Hi, how are you?" And everybody goes, "Great, how are you?" it's like, if people were really honest, it would not end with great, because I'm sure a lot of people out there are really struggling. And but we like to hear it because we always like everything to be great. And if anything goes wrong, it's like, well, how dare something go wrong? Like God's not helping me. He's not on my side. Doesn't love me. And that's not true at all. That's not true at all. It's the exact opposite, I think. So I'm just going to share that with you. I'm out, and really appreciate you tuning in. I can't find my bumper music to play out, so sorry. So you know what I'll do? I'll play this out. Support the show. Donate to the show. Keep me doing this. And I really appreciate you. Thank you for that. Go to katedalleyradio.com and support the show because there's only a few of us left that aren't bought. I know it sounds terrible, but it's the truth. Thank you. Really appreciate it. All right. I'm going to play my intro at the outro. Thanks, you guys, for tuning in. I'll see you on Monday. And by the way, Pam Bartha is coming on Tuesday, and Pam Bartha is the expert on parasites. If you have parasites and what kind of parasites, brain or body, or I mean, there's just so many different kinds. So Pam Bartha is on Tuesday, and I just want to let you guys know that too. But I will be back on Monday. So you guys have a great weekend. Great weekend. Thank you. Be faithful. Be fearless. Find out why I say that on the website, katedalleyradio.com. Thanks, you guys.